Welcome to today's Global Citizens program. I am Bill Miller. Today we're going to take a look at the state of journalism in the United States and get a feel for what we've experienced and what we might experience in the future. My guest today is an expert on this topic. Marie Regan is the 106th president of the Society of Professional Journalists. She has more than 30 years of newsroom experience in reporting, editing, design, and management. She recently semi-retired from her hometown newspaper in Staten Island, New York, called the Staten Island Advance. Marie Regan, welcome to today's Global Connections program.
Thank you, Bill. Glad to be here.
I appreciate you being with me. Let's jump right into this. You are the 106th president of the Society of Professional Journalists, SPJ, we'll say for short. What exactly is the SPJ? When was it formed? Why was it formed? What does it do?
Wow, it's it's an organization that's been around since 1909. It started at DePauw University in Indiana, and it was a fraternity at first and evolved into an organization of journalists. And it's a broad-based journalism organization. We welcome obviously professional journalists, but also student journalists, communications people, public relations people, anybody who is a communicator and wants to get together and have some solidarity and networking.
Okay, that sounds like a great opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And viewers can go to spj.org to get more information on what you're about. And if they're interested, perhaps join the organization. Now, you're the president for 1 year, as I recall, and you go out at the end of September, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
And so you'll have a new president coming in. What exactly was your function this year as president? What did you do?
Well, I guess, first of all, we are an organization of volunteers. I'm president of SPJ as a volunteer, and I'm national president, but we have a very complex structure for our membership with chapters across the country in every state. And we have, those are professional chapters. We also have student chapters on college campuses. And then we have regional coordinators who are 12 different regions who supervise the chapters. And you go up another level to the national board. We have 9 members on the national board. And so I served at the local level in New York City here for the Deadline Club. Since 1995, I've been involved in the Deadline Club, which is a New York City chapter of SPJ. And I really sort of was laser focused on Deadline Club until a couple years ago. After serving as its president for a few years, I took a shot at the national board, and I won as at-large director. Then I proceeded to president-elect and then president. So yes, I have a 1-year term. Our officers have 1-year terms. There's a lot of turnover, and it's actually great. It gives a lot of people a chance to put their leadership skills to work for the organization.
It certainly does, yes. And full disclosure, I'm a member of the Society of Professional Journalists. So
that's great.
I've been for many years. But let's focus on your membership. And one thing that you did that I found to be different, now maybe it wasn't, correct me if I'm wrong, but one thing you did was you reached out to members and set up phone conversations with them to just really brainstorm a bit, kind of talk about what's on their minds, that type of thing. And what were some of the topics or major topics that came up, or what were some of the items of importance that members wanted to talk about and bring to your attention so that you could focus on them or perhaps get some direction on which way to go?
Yeah, I mean, as SPJ national president, I'm sort of the CEO of the organization, but again, as a volunteer. We have a paid staff of 10. They're based in Indianapolis. So as volunteer president, yeah, my goal and every president's goal of SPJ is to reach out to the membership. We have over 4,100 members. And so we had the pandemic, which impacted our about getting together. We haven't been able to get together, but we're starting to resume that now. And in the interim, Zoom became a really powerful tool. So I decided as president to reach out to the members. I'd set up some Zoom or phone office hours. So twice a week, I am available for any member, any of our 4,100 members, to set up an appointment so we can have a chat. And it's been a wonderful experience for me. I've met many journalists I probably wouldn't have met through these office hours. We have wonderful chats on the phone. A lot of it is about career advice and, you know, what's next for me in this changing media landscape. What do you think of this idea I have for my career? So it's really sort of, you know, networking and career advice, which I'm happy to give. And that's what a lot of what SPJ is about.
Mm-hmm. Now, you've been involved in the profession for over 30 years, and I'm sure you've seen a lot of changes over those 30 years. What are some of the major changes that have taken place in the journalistic field?
Well, I've really focused my career as a print journalist. You know, I stayed at the same news organization, the Staten Island Advance, as you mentioned, for my entire newspaper career, actually. But I saw, and I evolved with the company as we went through different technology upgrades. And but you know, I also I learned to curate news from print to web, and so I really lived through a lot of the changes and learned along the way. And that was, you know, that was a plus for staying at the same organization all those years. And in my own hometown communities, my hometown newspaper, which is also a bonus, lots of connections, lots of sources, and lots of outreach. So yeah, I mean, technology, of course, and today the biggest challenge is employment and layoffs and the instability of our profession. And I mean, there are opportunities out there. They're just they're changing, and it's not the standard traditional roles anymore, but it's the same skills. So skill building is still important, and we do a lot of that at SPJ.
Yeah. Do you find that the younger people you're working with in your chapters and your student groups and that type of thing, are they aware of how dramatic that the whole landscape has changed and is going to change even more in the future, especially with AI, with the use of social media and those types of things?
Oh, definitely. I mean, social media, you know, it has pluses and minuses for journalists, mostly pluses. I mean, that's how a lot of journalists get their scoops, you know, and find out and make connections, find out about different news. But and that's how they keep in touch with each other and their readers and viewers. But yeah, I mean, there are also some perils with social media, as we all know. And I am a journalism professor, so we always include that in our curriculum. To me, one of the biggest challenges of social media is how it's impacted writing skills. I mean, you know, I see college students, they sort of now write as though they're texting. And, you know, the profession of journalism, that doesn't work. So it's a challenge for us in the college classroom to help our students differentiate between texting and reporting or writing.
There is a difference. It's very important, no doubt about it. Well, in your classroom, what are some of the major issues that you deal with? Do you deal with freedom of the press? We've seen that there's a systematic effort to suppress the press in many areas of the world, and even in the United States to some degree. We've got other issues of DEI, diversity, equality, and inclusion. We've got, again, this onslaught of social media and artificial intelligence. But what are some of the major issues you're dealing with that are discussed in the classroom, and what are some of the suggestions on how to deal with them?
Oh, certainly freedom of the press is a cornerstone of my courses that I teach. And I actually created a course called Dying to Tell the Story, which is inspired by a journalist named Dan Eldon, who was killed as he was reporting on a mob protest. He was stoned to death with several other photojournalists. He was working for Reuters. So his death inspired this course, and we learn all about the perils that journalists face across the world, you know, beyond the United States. Of course, we have our own perils here, but in the countries where there is no freedom of the press, and journalists face really intense challenges just to do their jobs. So this is just an enlightening course for American students who don't realize and maybe take for granted what we have here with freedom of the press in the United States. And it's really, it's enlightening for them to see what other countries don't have and how many journalists have sacrificed their freedom or their lives just to get the job done and tell a story. So we use the CPJ Committee to Protect Journalists data. We look at that a lot. They do a great job of tracking journalists who have kidnapped, injured, killed, country by country. So we sort of pair up with that data in the course. And, raising awareness is really important when you're teaching college students, raising their awareness.
It certainly is. There's no doubt about it. And the freedom of the press is so important. It really is absolutely critical, not only to us, but to people in other parts of the world. Yet there is just a massive effort around the world to suppress the media and to try to get them to fall into line, to report what a particular government or strong person wants them to report, that type of thing. But one group, you mentioned some of the groups that have been supportive. One is the UNESCO, the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. That is a major United Nations agency, and they've been in the forefront of promoting world free press for decades now, as far back as I can remember. You just went to an event, did you not not too long ago, over in New York? You got on the ferry, I guess, went across. But what exactly was that event that was put on by UNESCO, and what came out of it?
Yeah, I was cordially invited to, as SPJ president, to attend a luncheon hosted by the Association of Foreign Press Correspondents in the USA. And it's a group I really didn't know very much about, so I was happy to go and represent SPJ. And we're working on some ideas to collaborate. Certainly, SPJ can help elevate their message among our members and beyond. And I'm working with the executive director, Thanos, to come up with some programs. We're planning possibly a webinar in the fall, just so that the two, when journalism organizations collaborate, the message is louder. And so I'm always looking for opportunities to collaborate with other organizations who have the same focus and mission. And we're happy at SPJ to help foreign press correspondents, certainly.
Right. And you mentioned Tanos Dimitris.
Yes.
He is a very interesting fellow. He has been on the show before. In fact, our viewers can go to globalconnectionstelevision.com and scroll way down, go down a couple of years, and you'll find a very interesting interview with him that we conducted at the United Nations. I guess it's been about 4 or 5 years ago now. Well,
Bill,
you're watching. Yes, please.
If I can just add that, yeah, we are, U.S. based. SPJ focuses on American journalists, and those are most of our members. But a journalist around the world, any journalist is welcome to join our organization. But we do have a community. It's an online chapter of SPJ called the International Community, and run by volunteers from SPJ. And they focus on international issues, of course, press freedom being at the top of the list. And there's a link on the SPJ website that you can check out to find out the different activities they're planning and the messages that they're getting out. They do a really great job.
Very good. And we encourage our viewers to go to that, spj.org, and learn more about it. Well, you're watching Global Connections Television, which is a privately funded, independently produced program. The opinions expressed on Global Connections are solely those of the moderator and his guest. We'd invite our viewers to go to our website at www.globalconnectionstelevision.com to view previous programs. If you're involved with a PBS or community access television station, or perhaps an educational institution that has an intra-campus television hookup, or you have a podcast, or you just have a computer, you like our shows and you'd like to share them, please feel free to do so. Global Connections Television is provided at no cost as a public service to help us better understand international issues and how they impact our lives. Today, we're taking a look at a very interesting group called Society of Professional Journalists. My guest is an expert on this group. Marie Regan is the 106th president of the Society of Professional Journalists. She has more than 30 years of newsroom experience in reporting, editing, design, and management. Claire, we're talking about a variety of issues, variety of topics, and that type of thing, and how important freedom of the press is, and how we all need to work on it, not just in this country, but around the world. And it's so critical we do that. I mentioned UNESCO a minute ago, and if our viewers would like more information as to what UNESCO is doing, they can go to www.unesco.org to get some background information. But UNESCO has really been in the forefront on this and has done a remarkable job, along with many other groups too. They're not out there by themselves. Another group that we haven't had a chance to talk about, but maybe we should for a moment, are the indigenous peoples. We talk about Native Americans. So often, I feel anyway, that many of the issues that were of interest to Native Americans, not just in the United States, but in other countries of the world too, I really haven't gotten full coverage, or at least as full as I would like to see. Let's put it like that. But how are you involving, or are you involving folks who are indigenous peoples, Native Americans in this country, or maybe some from other areas of the world? I don't know. You tell me.
Well, yeah, I mean, the biggest issue that indigenous people face in our country is freedom of the press, the lack of freedom of the press. I've learned that indigenous tribes have different constitutions than we follow, and that does not include freedom of the press. So as national president of SPJ, I appoint 2 members to the national board, and I appointed a wonderful journalist I've known for over 20 years. I met her at the Poynter Institute when we were both ethics fellows for a year at the Poynter Institute in Florida. And her name is Jody Rave Spotted Bear. And she has joined the national board of SPJ, and she is helping us raise awareness about indigenous issues. She runs her own website on indigenous issues, and she is a big fighter for freedom of the press for the indigenous community. So she's helping us raise awareness. And I'm planning a webinar in early fall, while I'm still president, to just to raise awareness about different issues, freedom of the press, the main one, but just to help journalists understand how to cover indigenous issues and just to bring attention to them. So yeah, that's what we do in SPJ, raise awareness. And Jody Rave is a wonderful, welcome addition to the board this year.
Mm-hmm. And that would be a whole area that would just have just an immense number of issues that need to be covered.
Mm-hmm.
For example, the situation, just assume some people are living on reservations, that type of thing. They have their own, I guess, legislative bodies. They handle a large part of their internal operations, but there are so many problems that are really endemic to those areas, such as poor education, poverty. Yep. You've got human trafficking, which is a major problem, violence against women. That has really come to the surface recently. Mm-hmm. And again, so often these problems or issues are just swept under the rug. They don't get that coverage. So this sounds like it has a tremendous opportunity to focus the spotlight on it.
Yes, and I want to put a plug in for NAJA, the Native American Journalists Association, and mm-hmm. The board member I just mentioned, Jody Rave Spotted Bear. She just joined their board, and they're doing wonderful things about raising awareness, and they have a conference each year. So I'm hoping to collaborate more with that group as well, SPJ and NAJA, to collaborate together.
That would be an excellent idea. Yes, it certainly would be. Do you have any idea of how many journalists are in the Native American community around the United States? I wouldn't know where to begin on this, but maybe it's just it's an unknown figure that we don't have at this point. But are there other folks with whom you could reach out to get them involved and to perhaps get them thinking about what's taking place right now and how they can help their communities?
Well, I'm certainly not an expert on those stats, but I can tell you I've learned that of the colleges on reservations across the United States, it's less than 1% of them offer journalism programs. So just to learn that, and that's where SPJ could help with some training or some kind of collaboration. And so I think just learning more facts about Indigenous journalists and what challenges they face is really important. That's the first step. And I think American journalists, we don't know that much about that community. So I want to get the word out and raise awareness about it.
Exactly. Awareness is a critical thing.
Yep.
You have to be aware of the problem.
Exactly.
And then we can see what we can do to offer some type of assistance to it. Well, before we run out of time, I want to just give you a sort of a free mic type of situation. In your many years, 3 decades more of experience, what recommendations would you make to strengthen that broad rubric of journalism that covers the waterfront from A to Z? You're talking about small weeklies to mega newspapers, that type of thing. But what recommendations would you put out or proffer to, other than join the Society of Professional Journalists? But what would you suggest to help strengthen the field of journalism, and maybe give some food for thought to younger people who are getting involved in this?
Well, I mean, it's all about storytelling, and we have so many different forms of that now today with the internet and social media, but it's all about storytelling. And then, like I mentioned before, a lot of the skills are foundation skills to be a good journalist in any format. And at SPJ, one of our gold brands is our Code of Ethics. It's been around for a long time. We guard it, we revise it, we assess it, we protect it, and we live by it. We practice it, the Code of Ethics. So I would recommend anybody in journalism, interested in journalism, check out spj.org, our Code of Ethics. It is the industry standard. I mean, a lot of different news organizations have their own codes of ethics, which is great. Ours is the one you find frequently in journalism textbooks. It just has some really great pillars that help you carry out your journalism with best practices. And the one I cite the most is to minimize harm. And as journalists, we can do that with our work, with our storytelling, minimize harm for others, and raising awareness. So check out the Code of Ethics. I think that's the guiding principle for best practices in journalism, no matter what format you work in.
That's a very good approach and very solid recommendations on what we can do. And journalism is going through a really tumultuous period right now. We see that so many of the journalists are being laid off. We're not getting the news the way we should be. Investigative journalism has taken quite a hit. So it's really a very, very difficult situation, and one that's going to not be helpful for our society in the long run. So hopefully we can reverse that.
Well, we have unfortunately developed these news deserts across the country where the local newspaper has either folded or reduced its publication down to, or even its website, whatever way it disseminates news, but down to only once, twice, 3 times a week. And that just leads to misinformation, the proliferation of misinformation. So, we need journalists in every community. We need to guard.
We do.
I'm a community journalist. I'm a hyper local journalist. I worked for a local newspaper in New York City, the Staten Island Advance. So I value local journalism. It really maintains democracy and keeps communities together, and stops the proliferation of misinformation. So
that is a perfect way to close it. I'm so glad you said that, because we have a fire hose of misinformation, disinformation, and lies that are taking place out there. But Claire Marie Regan, I want to thank you so very much for a very interesting and a very informative program.
Thank you, Bill. I'm glad you're an SPJ member.
My pleasure. I'm Bill Miller. Thank you for joining us today on Global Connections Television.